Hey, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Another whiskey adventure. So today we're going to take on Jura. I'm going to talk about Jura, the island, a wee bit about the history and things that appeal to me about the island, and then I'm going to be getting on and sampling the whiskey. This is the last of my Christmas whiskey, so it's not a miniature. So I was going to enjoy a dram tonight, so I thought I'd do the video talking about Jura. So Jura as a place, as a special place in my heart. I've always read about the island, but I've never been there. I'll put that up front first. I think sometimes there's a few places that intersect with your life in an unexpected way. And for me, Jura has grown into almost mythic status. Other places that I connect with, Huddersfield in England, Philadelphia, other places as well. But places where the strands of your life, without getting too out there with it, kind of dissect. But anyway, Jura. So I'll talk about the island as a sample of whiskey. So Jura sits 85 miles west of my house. So if we were heading directly behind me, actually 85 miles directly behind me, you'd be able to see that's where Jura would be. You can't see it because like Arran, there's another island tucked away, Butte. You'd have to look over Butte. So yeah, 85 miles, not that far really, is it? But due to the geography, I'd have to go up around Glasgow, down round. It would take me up to about 6 hours to get there by car and ferry. And I'm notoriously travel sick, so I don't know if I'd be able to survive the ferry, but maybe it'd be worth it. And like Arran, which I talked about in a previous video, it sits on the Atlantic coast. So unusually for its where it is in the latitudes, is that the one that goes up and down? The Gulf Stream keeps it warm, so what that means is we get milder winters, but certainly very wet winters, and I can attest to that. Being a glasses wearer, one of the first things I did when I moved to Scotland, to Glasgow, was buy myself a hat. History of Jura, history of kind of this area is it used to be under Irish settler control. I can't pronounce it, but Irish settlers came over and formed the Kingdom of Dalry, and then the Vikings, the Norsemen, came down, and from the north of Scotland down the islands, Isle of Man, and into Ireland, formed the Kingdom of the Isles. And what just on a tangent, like Sutherland, which is one of the most northern regions in Scotland, was called Sutherland because it was a southern land of the Kingdom of the Isles. Anyway, it came down. Kingdom of the Isles lost its control over a lot of the islands after the Battle of Largs, which again, I am in the centre of all of this. If you go down the coast, you'll come across Largs, and it's like the next town down, and every year they have a Viking festival. So when there's a Viking reenactment, a very good friend of mine, Gear and Graith, if you hunt down his YouTube channel, he's an archaeologist that actually does stuff, experimental archaeologist. He often will play the Steward of Scotland in the Battle of Largs. There's a Viking visitor centre in Largs as well. But anyway, so that wrested its control from the Norse, and it became Scottish Crown lands. And I think Jura is actually named after a Norse word that means deer, who the deer vastly outnumber the people on the island. There's 5,000 deer in less than 200 people. So yeah, less than 200 people live on Jura. At its peak, I think about 1,300 in censuses in 1831, but now it's down to about 200 people. Now, why is Jura important to me? So first I came across Jura in my teenage years as a place where George Orwell wrote in 1984. Famously, every podcast about Jura says this. George Orwell described it as being in an extremely ungettable place. Now, I loved 1984 as a book. I read it several times in my teenage years. Massive impression on us. And I'm the sort of person that I don't just consume the media. I like to find out everything about it. It's one of the reasons I'm doing whiskey videos and talking more about the place than just the whiskey. It's been really fun delving into places and finding out some facts I didn't know about it. But yeah, so 1984, George Orwell, in 1984, when he finished it off, went off to Jura, set himself up in the north. And actually that's always inspired me. And one of the things I've always dreamed about, probably not now, I'm kind of a family guy, would be to be an author and just seclude myself away from it all with some bottles of whiskey and a typewriter, and who knows where we'd get to. So yeah, a dream of mine. So the next part where Jura became important to me was from the band the KLF. And people of a certain age, especially from Britain, will know about the KLF, big band in the early 90s. And Jura was a place that they'd done a Wicker Man Burning festival a couple of years ago, and then as they finished their career as a KLF, they're artists, and as they finished their career as a KLF, they slipped away to Jura and burned £1 million as an art installation. Sometimes they regret it, sometimes they don't. Depends what interview you see. I'd love to meet Bill Drummond and Paul Corty and chat about it. So that always resonated to me. I could talk about that for ages, could talk about the KLF for ages and the reasons for burning it and stuff, but it always stuck with me, and Jura was always in my mind about it. And they recently done a book. When they said 23 years later they'd come back and start doing some media again as KLF. Did another book, which was 2023 is what it's called, and Jura's a big part of that. So yeah, George Orwell, KLF, always been attracted to the idea of secluding myself on Jura. But anyway, I've already pre-poured this. So this is a whiskey, lovely light colour. Jura's just up from Islay, and Isla's noted for some very heavy peaty whiskey. Jura hasn't got a strong head on it, hasn't got a strong smell. I mean, the smell's nice. I was going to say definitely smells of whiskey there. Definitely smells. And I describe it. It's a warm but not overpowering scent. Now I've got this measured out. I generally drink when I'm measuring my whiskies. I've got a wee measure. I've got my water measured there. So this is a 50ml measure, and I normally add in another 35 millilitres of water. Actually, sometimes I'll just go for a 35 milliliter of whiskey, and I'll go for 25 millilitres of water. So the Jura distillery distilled from about 1810 up to the end of the century. Like a lot of these distilleries, went out of use, rebuilt in the 1950s. It's gone through several owners, including, as I found out researching this, Scotch Newcastle, former brewers of one of my favourite drinks in my youth, Newcastle Brown Ale. In case you can't tell by the accent, everybody used to drink it back home. I hadn't drunk it in years since I've been up here. In fact, just out of interest, I do like ales as well. Got one of these. This is really nice. Got it for the whiskey, Scotch whiskey beer. So it's actually got whiskey through it. A really interesting taste. Quite a sweet taste for an ale. You definitely taste the whiskey through it. If you're ever out and about, you fancy see some of this, get it. It was sold in a load of Sainsbury's and stuff. Couldn't find it. I found that in a B&M today, and I was like, yeah, I'm just going to follow my Jura later. So anyway, the new distillery was finished in 1963. The new owners decided on taller stills that allowed more gentle taste than the big, heavy, peaty whiskies from Islay. There's a fascinating interview with Graham Logan, and it's called Graham Logan and Jura Whiskey. I think Graham Logan is the manager of the distillery, and it's on Live from the Sample Room podcast. I found this on Spotify when I was kind of been listening to some whiskey podcasts. So yeah, so it's not got a strong taste like Islay. I will get onto Lagavulin and Lefroy and the big heavy peaty whiskies. This, like I say, if this was a big heavy peaty whiskey, I'd be able to smell it from here. About here, the smell starts coming in. And actually, for Jura, a lot of the whiskey was primarily for blending, with some single malt production. And because of its more gentle taste, this is what I'd consider, this is kind of my go-to. I'm not after something special, kind of my normal drinking whiskey. It's also one with Dalwhinnie, which I'll get onto as well, which I may take somebody who's not drank many malts before, and I'll start taking them on a journey with malts that way. There's only one whiskey distillery on Jura, although I believe a rum distillery is opened. I'm surprised it's not gin. Everything seems to be gin these days. Gin's exploded. The distillery over the last years have changed their output and moved from that blended to basically all malt. And they actually rebranded all the bottles. You had 10-year-olds of normal output, then you had like Superstition, Prophecy, a 16-year-old, and so this is Journey. Single malt whiskey, a refined balance of rich fruit and gentle smoky notes from maturation in American white oak ex-bourbon barrels. So yeah, this reminds me of kind of like an American bourbon bottle as well, like a Bullet, was it? Not. It's been a while since I worked in a bar, but yeah, it's certainly got like I say, a feel of an American bottle about it. So yeah, so out the current crop of output, got this. Used to drink a lot of Prophecy. I think I was getting into malts just as that was running down, so I was able to get loads of that like relatively cheap from the supermarket. So anyway, before I finished all my Jura, I thought I'd do a whiskey. So like I say, let's sample it without the water, then I'll add the water and talk about it. So yeah, again, I'm getting a lot of sweetness there. Kind of sweetness like an orangey, caramelly orangey kind of sweetness to that whiskey. And actually, without water there, I think I'd be quite happy drinking that without water. There you go, that's the warmth starting to go down now. Some whiskies, you know, the taste of the alcohol can overpower it. I mean, that's a 40%, so it's not a strong whiskey as well. So just nip in some water. So I drink my whiskey. I like to drink at room temperature. The water's at room temperature as well. I like for it. The way I describe it is that the water starts unlocking the tastes. Making it a lot more smoother to go down. Yeah. Definitely tastes orangey, bit of citrus across the front there. It's very smooth. But anyway, that's my thing on Jura. Let's say it's the middle of the road. For me, it's quite a middle of the road whiskey with a bit of island bite about it, as opposed to sort of the Highland whiskies. Dalwhinnie or Jura are whiskies I know that I've taken new people to whiskey to before, and over the course of the night, probably build up. I like to say maybe start off with a Dalwhinnie or a Jura, take something like a Highland Park or a Glenfiddich in the middle, and then finish off with a Lagavulin or a Lefroy, something big and heavy to take the person through the grade and the whiskies. Yeah, there is. It's smooth with a bit of a rough kick, if that makes sense. But anyway, that's Jura. Why Jura is important to me. I hope to get out there and visit one day. I really should. Like I said with Aaron, it's just not that far away, really. But anyway, hope you're having a good time at the moment. If you've got any thoughts on Jura as a whiskey, give me a shout. Always happy to talk about whiskey. Wargaming as well, and history. That's what this channel's all about. So any of those topics, happy to chat about. And anyway, you have a good one. I'm going to have my whiskey, then I'm going to go into my headspace. But this has been me talking about Jura whiskey and a bit about the island of Jura. But anyway, that's bye for now. Bye bye.